Back in the days when Ubuntu was running Unity, I hadn't even remotely considered using Linux yet. But even though the main Ubuntu project has dropped that desktop environment, it doesn't mean the software has been completely abandoned altogether. So Unity 7 has actually lived on under a separate project called Ubuntu Unity Remix, which is basically just modern versions of Ubuntu shipping with Unity 7. But even though Unity 7 still seems like a perfectly good desktop environment, at least from what I have seen, it is starting to get a little bit old, and the Ubuntu Unity team want there to be a continuation to Unity, bringing it into a bit more of a modern desktop environment. So there's going to be a successor to Unity 7 called UnityX. And even though it's going to continue to use GTK as its UI library, it is no longer going to be using any of the GNOME components like were present in Unity 7. Now, there is two main ways to test UnityX. So over on Ubuntu Unity, there is a build of it that ships with UnityX, but I'm going to be testing it in a slightly different way. I'm going to be testing it from the version available in the AUR, which is being packaged by the UnityX team. So this is basically as official of a package on Arch as we're going to get. And this is how it currently looks. Now, I can totally understand why you are very disappointed, especially if you've seen how Unity 7 looks, which actually, is a very good desktop environment. This is still... It says it's release candidate 5. I would not call this a release candidate. The Arch version is slightly behind the Ubuntu Unity version, but I would call this more of like a pre-alpha. That seems a bit more accurate. What I mean by it's slightly behind is a lot of the effects and a lot of the styling don't actually work on the Arch version, even though they are supposed to be the exact same version number. So, for example, if we go and press Alt-A, that is going to bring up the menu to actually select the app we want to open. Now, there's actually new icons made for these, but those new icons aren't actually being used here. Also, there is a black box around everything, which also isn't actually present in the Ubuntu Unity version. I don't know why that is there, but I guess it is. Now, from here, you can go and search for stuff like you'd be able to do on, any sort of search bar like this, and it works basically as you'd expect. Resizing and moving stuff around works, as you'd expect any sort of graphical environment to work. Nothing really outside of the box here. There is window snapping, which is certainly nice to see. And even though I prefer using a tiling window manager, this is always a nice in-between when, that isn't an option. Now, I mentioned that Alt-A key binding before, but there are some other key bindings you might want to remember. In fact, there are currently a total of 4 key bindings in the entire desktop environment. So if we press Alt-W, this is going to open up a list of the apps we currently have open. So let's go and open up Xterm again. And pressing Alt-W again, it'll tell us we have Xterm open, it'll tell us which user has it open, and also which desktop it is currently on. I'll get into desktops in just a bit though. Pressing Alt-S is going to bring up the volume controls, basically just a graphical controller for Pulse Audio. It seems like it perfectly does the job, and pressing Alt-X is going to go and kill the session. So let's go and log back in, and here we actually see another one of the big problems. So there isn't actually a way to set the wallpaper on the Arch version. So there's supposed to be. If we go into our settings here, there is an option here for setting a background. That doesn't actually work. So there's also a separate setting in here for the Arch settings, which also has a background setting, and that was supposed to have been updated before I started testing this, but it still doesn't actually work. However, because this is effectively just a window manager at this point, you can just go and use Fair, and that's the way I was doing it before. I mentioned the volume controls when we press Alt-S before, but in the middle of our bar, you may have noticed a little speaker icon right here. So this is a separate way to control your volume, and it looks like it's straight out of, Windows 95, but it is only present on the Arch version of UnityX. On the Ubuntu Unity version, it looks, like it actually fits in a 2021 desktop. Also, there is this mixer icon right here, which looks for a different application than the one we actually have installed on our system. Now, when it comes to this bar probably looks fairly familiar in some ways. If you ever run a tiling window manager, I guarantee you've used this application before. This right here is a very, very basic polybar, but it doesn't actually have the text vertically centered properly and looks really, really strange because of it. And then these boxes you see on my desktop, those are basically just conky outputs, and because I don't actually have that much running on my system, sometimes you'll actually see it, right here. Conky is one of the things using up most of the resources on my system. Now, I briefly mentioned the Arch settings app. So, this settings app is not the final one they're going to be going with. This is basically just a temporary version made, so there is some level of settings available for the Arch version. There's supposed to be a more control-centered style version that is going to be available on the Ubuntu Unity version, but it hasn't been ported outside of Ubuntu. I have no idea what they've done to make it so it only works on Ubuntu, but right now we have this one instead. Now let's talk about desktops, a fairly standard feature regardless of whether you're using a window manager or a desktop environment on Linux. So right now, let's see what desktop we are currently on. Right now we're on desktop 0, and because there's not really any key bindings that let you move between desktops, at least any that I know about, I've tried all of the obvious combinations, moving between desktops is basically just luck and jank, I think is a good way to put it. So let's see if we can go to a different desktop. So I've noticed there we go. Sometimes when you rub against the side of the screen, you will go to a different desktop. I don't know why. I don't know what the conditions are that make it happen, but sometimes I will see that it happens. Okay, somehow we move back. I genuinely don't know how. There's clearly a mechanism here, but I don't understand how the mechanism works. That time it didn't move us. It seems like it's entirely random. I am really trying to find positive things to say here, and honestly, it's really, really difficult. Basically, all this has got going for it is it's very lightweight because nothing's actually running, and it has window snapping, at least on the windows that decide to work. This one we can resize, but for some reason, it won't actually snap. I don't know why. Oh, it snaps there, but it won't snap there. I don't know. Now, just for the record, let's actually go and see how Unity 7 actually looks. So this is UnityX running on Arch. This is Unity 7 running on Ubuntu Unity Remix. Now, this basically just looks like an older version of GNOME. I feel like it looks pretty good. You can argue about that, but what you can say about this, and you can't really deny, is it clearly has a cohesive experience. This, it seems like something you would see, someone throw together on r/Unix porn when they just want to get some upvotes in a couple of minutes. Now, to be fair to it, it does look better on Ubuntu Unity. I still feel like this is very much a pre-alpha compared to the way that Unity 7 currently looks. So this is Unity 7, this is UnityX running on Ubuntu Unity. Clearly there's like an experience coming together, but it still needs a lot of polish to even remotely call this a release candidate. But as you can see, they are working on new icons. Personally, I don't really like them. My problem with these custom icons like this is any icons that don't fit the icon theme really, really stand out compared to anything else. So if you look in here, you'll see all of these new custom icons, then you see Chromium, then you see Brave, and they really, really stand out. Compared to this where you don't really have a complete custom icon set. Obviously, there are some of them, but it still feels like a better experience like that. I totally get wanting to update the experience and feel like a more modern desktop environment. While I haven't used Unity 7, I can clearly see from these screenshots that the direction that they are going seems fairly far removed from what Unity 7 was. I don't know if they're going to shift more in the direction of what Unity 7 was doing, but in its current state, if I'm a Unity 7 user, I don't feel like this is a successor, I feel like this is a completely separate project. Speaking of Unity 7 though, one thing that might be fun to go and do is actually go and try out Ubuntu Unity running Unity 7 and seeing what the experience is actually like running it in 2021. I've never used Unity 7, I don't know what it's actually going to be like, but I want to see if it actually holds up. It seems like it should be perfectly fine, so keep an eye out for that video. I will leave all the links to go and try out Unity 7 in the description down below. Go and try it out. Let me know what you think about it. Am I just over-exaggerating and it is a far more cohesive experience than I'm making it out to be? Or do you agree with me and think this is very much basically just a pre-alpha? I would like to know. That's going to be it for me, and if you like this video and you want to support the channel and become one of these amazing people over here, go check out my Patreon, subscribe to Only Bearer Pay, linked in the description down below. I've got a podcast called Tech Over Tea, available basically anywhere. I've got a gaming channel called Brodie Robertson Plays, where I live stream twice a week, upload about 5 or so YouTube shorts, and this channel is also available over on Odyssey. That's going to be it for me, and I'm out.